least to this crisis. Carbon emissions per person in the UK are 28 times bigger than those of someone in Sierra Leone, but they are the ones getting hit the hardest. And unless we take urgent action, things will get worse for hard-pressed communities around the world and for the future of our favourite products. Up to 50% of land used for coffee could be unusable by 2050. Plant diseases are becoming more common. Cocoa trees will be harder to grow in West Africa. Wine production could reduce by 40 to 50% in South Africa and Chile. But we can choose a better future with Fairtrade. Fairtrade exists precisely to help those in need get through a crisis and win justice in the longer term. Whether that's a trade crisis of unsustainable prices, the COVID-19 crisis, or the huge challenge of the climate crisis. So how is Fairtrade helping tackle the climate crisis? When you buy Fairtrade, it means farmers and workers getting at least a guaranteed Fairtrade minimum price and an extra payment known as the Fairtrade Premium, which they choose how to invest in their communities and farms. That means more resources to deal with the escalating challenges climate change brings. This could mean planting new trees, new climate-smart farming techniques, or coping with more extreme weather patterns. Sadly, too many farmers and workers simply don't earn enough to do any of this, which is why our global fair trade movement is campaigning for all farmers and workers to earn a living income, so communities, businesses and families in the global south can survive this crisis. But with our fair trade producer networks, Fairtrade is there on the ground too, giving expert practical advice. Fairtrade farmers are on the front line of the climate crisis, but are working to win a better future for our planet. They work in line with our eco-friendly Fairtrade standards, bans on deforestation, commitments to reduce carbon footprints, protections for biodiversity. So every time you choose Fairtrade, you're choosing a better future for all of us and the whole planet. Action on climate change is in our hands. Share to help us win a fairer future. On the front line of the climate crisis to help them.
So thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Now, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Claire, who's going to start us off with some poetry.
I am indeed. Am I off mute? Yes, I am. Hello, people. Great to see you. What a pleasure to be here, and what an absolute privilege to get to read with Zoe and Kristian. I was at an event with them. God, was it about a week ago? Kristian, Zoe, I don't know. It's all a bit of a blur. We've been working in a festival together, and my memory. My memory isn't what it was when the festival started, but yeah, an absolute delight to be here. I'm going to be reading from my last collection, which is called Flood. I won't give you much patter about it. I am a poet. I live in Hebden Bridge in West Yorkshire. You may have heard of Hebden Bridge. One of the things you may have heard about Hebden Bridge is that we experience lots and lots of floods. So actually we flooded just before lockdown began a year ago. That was our last major flood. We were on the media, I think in the last month. We came very, very close to flooding again. And we have flooded repeatedly over the last, well, actually over the last 700 years, but with increasing frequency and regularity over the last couple of decades. So as a poet, you know, you always write about the stuff that exists in your life. And I saw that the flood theme was cropping up more and more and more. And I decided to make it the theme of my last collection. I'm going to screen share so that people who might be hearing impaired can join in as well. If you prefer to have the document smaller and my face bigger, then all that you need to do is go up to view and press speaker view. And then if you move your cursor around between the photos and the document, and I know that Zoe and Kristian will be document sharing as well. you'll highlight a grey border. If you put your cursor on that grey border and move your cursor, you can make the document smaller, my face bigger, or you could go in the other direction, make my face tiny and the document nice and big. I'll start reading from Flood. So Flood is very literally the story of the floods in Hebden Bridge. It's the story specifically of the floods that happened in 2012 and the great big floods that happened in 2015. But it's also about harnessing the descriptions of flood as a kind of metaphor, I guess, for personal catastrophe and for events that were going on in wider society as well. The idea of anything that's very destructive and very powerful and that leaves a trail of damage in its wake is very much at the kind of core of Flood. But it's also, as much of that, it's also a story of community and regeneration. And again, you know, using Flood as a metaphor, it's about how we survive terrible things and how we cope and how we move forward and how we kind of absorb them into our frameworks and how we can resist as well. So I hope there's something of relevance beyond the very specific experience of flooding. How I heard. I heard rain like conversation. I heard the warning, more to come. I heard the front door slamming and I heard my phone insisting. I heard Todmorden was going, my Royd had gone. I did not hear the siren. I heard a sound like anger and all night long the river. I heard rumours of disaster like pain. I heard the water and I heard the school was under and I could not get warm. I saw the blue lights flashing and I heard my neighbours shouting. I heard warning, I heard warning. Yes, I saw the river rising, but I did not see this coming. Roads and paths covered, flash flooding on steeper slopes. The air is forest. The road is blocked with trees. There is noise between them and no word except river, the canal is fast, river, the path is deep, river, the river is a story that can't be believed. The birds have all left the woods. The lane is a ripped up book, and as much as you know of rain, this rain is taking everything. Your clothes forget themselves, your shoes have never been dry. It has drowned the rabbits. They could not escape from the cage where you kept them. It is lifting the hens in their coop. You can still hear them scream. It breaks your phone and the lights. You are left in the total dark. When your town is a river and everywhere you love is going under, when even the boats can't float, when the water is at your door and rising, when the mice have all fled upstairs, when no one can reach you, the only choice you can make is what you can lift and save, is not to forget you can leave, is to wade with the weight of a child on your shoulders, is to follow instructions for crossing deep water, though the current grows steadily stronger and deeper. Your house is a river. Now swim. Flood Town. I am the track blocked with rubble. I am rubble. I am the tea time commuter come home to a town in disaster. I am on my phone. I am the man saying fuck over and over. I am up to my axles in muck. I am that one car floating. I am those who did not make it up the hill. I am the battery, dead in the cold. I am the phone's blank screen. I am the siren that sounded too late. I am the neighbour with the cigarette. I am too wet to smoke. I am the gate you leaned on. I am the schools all shut. I am the children. I don't know whether to cry. Where should I go? I am the mother knee deep. I cannot stop saying fuck. I would like to go home now. I am the rain, a town in ruins. Fuck. Fuck. I'm just going to take a step outside of the flood sequence because as I've said, the book draws, the kind of central theme in the book is literally flooding, but the book also acts as the flood theme also acts as metaphor for wider experiences. And one of the kind of narratives that was unraveling at the time that I was writing the book was the Jimmy Savile story. And one of the reasons that I absolutely love Zoe's writing is that there's no binary between what we see going on. There's no division between what we see going on with the climate and the world. And I think that was really, really evident in the little film that Joanna just played for us. And violence against people, violence against the earth, and violence against children and women and people who, for whatever reasons, are less powerful. Let me just see. I can see that there's chat coming in, and I just want to check that some of you. Oh, great, thank you. I was just checking that the chat wasn't saying we can't hear you. What are you going on about? So I'm going to read a last couple of poems from this section of the book, which I guess is about the dreadful destruction that's wreaked by climate and by our violence towards the climate, violence towards the planet, and violence towards other people. And then we're going to pass over to Zoe and Kristian, and then I'm going to come back after their reading and continue with another bit from Flood, where I'll read more, where the narrative will be more about what brings us together as a community, what keeps us going. You know, the narrative is about recovery, I guess, in some ways, and survival and the way forward. Grim. At the time that the Jimmy Savile scandal was breaking, I became really interested in the story of Hansel and Gretel for reasons that are probably obvious. But I feel very sorry for the poor children all the same. The woodcutter. No light in that darkness to lead them or save them. No one to hear them and nothing to guide them. Too young to be out there alone and so hungry. The forest at night is so terribly rowdy. One shriek is too much like another. Owl is rabbit, is fox scream, is murder, is brother and sister. The wind in the branches is whisper and water. The moon is a ghost, path is trap, black. They should not have been there alone. In that house in the clearing, its lacework of icing, the sugary blaze of the sweets, so young and so hungry, so terribly pretty, all that colour and candy. Who would have believed it? Who didn't suspect it? Who hadn't yet guessed it? Did fuck all about it? His jacket of gold and his skin thick as leather, his burgundy chair like a throne. They should not have been there alone. Who's to blame for the way that it feels when you're 15 and under and you're led to the forest and sold down the river and as old as the hills as your mother, your father, and all these years later, they're telling the same story over and over, and there's millions watching his hands up your jumper over and over and over and over. And I'll move to the last poem of this part of the book, which I guess draws on another iconic figure, my daughter, who's here in the audience. I'm conscious of that every time I drop an F-bomb, Not that she hasn't heard me dropping F-bombs before. A long time ago, we were actually walking down from Snowdon. I remember it really specifically said, would I write a poem from the point of view of Noah's wife? So I did. Low-lying regions inundated. Large objects begin to float. My man was not blameless, but he knew his own mind. He loved his sons, his God, his goats. We were solid as wood, as steady as bread. It was not perfect, it was what I had. I brought up boys in a time of war, and I loved them. I had no choice. And this is my voice. You would not believe the violence, how the ground was covered in minutes, how quickly our valley was Nile. When the river came with a sound like battle, and when all the waters were one, then we knew how angry we'd made him, and it was too late to run. When I tell you, I feared for my life, for my children, you cannot imagine. When I say I saw people drown, they looked in my face and I could not help them. Ours was the only boat on that ocean, a boat the size of a zoo, a mansion, a sea the size of the world. I lived to see what I loved destroyed, and all my world was unmade. 40 days. The boredom and stink and the darkness. No wonder the birds pulled out their feathers and the bear banged his head on the wall. And when the rain stopped, then the silence. The mountains a dream in the waters beneath us. I think that day there was sun. When floods recede, they don't leave a world made shiny and bright. For years, I'll be cleaning up shit. No bird, no branch can make this right. No trick of the light. No, I'll never do it again. No God or man. I loved him. I had no choice. And this is my voice. It takes more than a dove. And I will not forgive. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. That was extraordinary. Thank you so much. So yeah, that was great. Can we move on now to Zoe and Kristian? And you're going to, Zoe and Kristian are going to curating a book of poetry called 100 Poems to Save the Earth. And I'm sure they'll tell you a bit more about it now.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, Claire, I just loved that read. It was so amazing. Wonderful to see you read. And I just posted in the chat a little bit about the book and a place where you can sign up if you'd like information about it. It's not out until June, so it's nice. It's quite nice for us to give a bit of a preview here today. And Claire's absolutely right. I love the way you put it, Claire, when you say that it's about violence towards the planet and also about violence towards people. Often people have fewer privileges and how those two things are really connected. And I know that Chris and I are really pleased to be doing this event because we really care about fair trade. And it is about just recognizing that interconnectedness. That we don't want to be exploiting labor in countries that are not our own. And when we see like the consequences of that, it's really heartbreaking. And if we could just raise the standard of living for everybody, it would have such a strong and immediate impact for us all. If you've seen like David Attenborough's most recent documentary, which is on Netflix, we get it over here in the States where I am as well. It really makes that point really clearly. So we're really excited to be doing this. I could tell you a bit about the anthology, but I had an idea. I'm slightly embarrassed, but I thought maybe rather than me telling you about it, I'd read like a couple of the things that people have said we're just getting endorsements for at the moment for the back of the book. And so I thought I'd just read those instead. And so we've had one so far, which is from Daljit Nagra, which was really great to read. And he said, "This compelling suite of poems is a timely reminder to cherish, to celebrate. What could be more enjoyable than beautiful poems about this beautiful planet? This collection is immediate, moving, wise, and unforgettable as it is unputdownable." So that was wonderful, wonderful to have that from Daljit. And also from an American writer, Sonia Huber in the States. She writes, "These achingly beautiful poems from a range of stellar talents animate and explore the sometimes frayed connection we have with our precious planet, remind us how to refine ourselves amid the landscape we call home." So I thought it was a really beautiful way to put it as well. So without further ado, let's go on to look at the poems, and I'm going to screen share. Claire beautifully explained how you can